This is Ryan Callahan of First Lite, and with me this week, continuing our series of cool and interesting folks dropping by the First Lite office, is Navy SEAL Commander Rourke Denver. Rourke and I met through Steve Ranella a few years ago, and been keeping in touch and keeping tabs on each other. And Rourke's in town to teach folks maybe how to slip away from, dangerous situations.
Yep, we've got some, I've got a bunch of companies up here that have CEOs and folks in town for a little summit. So we're going to do a little hand-to-hand fighting. We're going to do getting out of some of the, well, if you know how, the simple stuff, duct tape, flex cuffs, should you find yourself in that situation.
Normal, everyday type of stuff.
It could happen. I just say be prepared. So let's learn some skills.
Yeah, I like it. Well, got a bunch of good questions for you, but kind of one of the main things that I think we should start with is you're a relatively new hunter again, right?
Yeah.
And so we did some new hunter series stuff, and there's no end to the questions. Right. And everybody wants to know. So when you hunted for the first time in recent memory, in like 4 years ago, probably?
Oh yeah. I mean, I spent the last almost decade and a half chasing hunting bad guys around the world wherever they pop their heads up. So I mean, hunting is definitely a core principle and key skill set for SEALs, but classic hunting that we do here in the mountains of the West and all throughout this great country is definitely new. I'm a lifelong fly fisherman and outdoorsman. Have always really enjoyed those pursuits, but big game hunting in particular is new. Steve and I got linked up through some friends. Actually, I can't even remember now, but Steve and I got linked up. He invited me on the hunt, so I joked that I got to skip to the front of the class as a rookie hunter. Most first hunts don't take place in the Alaska range going for black bear with a world-class hunter like Steve and people like you outfitting me with gear. So I probably started in the best and worst case scenario for a new hunter, because it's gonna be hard to top my first hunt as I move forward. But I'm in love with it, and I've been doing it since then, progressively more and more, and I'm all in.
And I mean, you still had some like gear prep or trip preparation stuff, and you're obviously from the military background. You're used to putting together trips and getting outfitted and making sure all your ducks are in a row. And so, was there some common ground there, or was it a relatively new experience?
No, it felt almost identical to prepping for being in the field for multiple days. So I mean, if you made Giannis like my leading petty officer within a SEAL platoon, they would post or pass out to the boys a gear list, and this is how long we're going to be out, this is what the mission is, this is what we got going on, both in training, and then about the time you get to combat, you have everything dialed to the point that you'll make your own choices on what you're going to bring into the gear, bring into the mountains or into the battlefield, to be in good shape and to have what you need. So when I got the gear list from Ranella and his crew, I was like, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, spread out all my stuff in the garage, and I felt like I was, just back in the saddle at the team, getting ready to go do the job.
All right. Yeah, it's funny, because one of my first impressions of that Meat Eater crew, the first time I linked up with them in Montana, was almost like a military outfit.
No doubt about it.
The guys are in good shape. They're dressed, like it or not, fairly similar. Lots of inconspicuous big cases.
No, they were like a well-oiled machine, and all of it. I mean, it was not only was it prepping gear, laying that out, testing the weight of my gear to make sure everything was right. Obviously getting the rifle ready and doped in and ready for the hunt. But then all the logistics. Hey, this is where we're meeting. This is the timeline. How we're going to get there. Food and all the prep that went with it. Very, very familiar, and it's probably one of the reasons that I was so attracted to staying with it and wanting to make hunting a big part of my life, is just the tremendous parallel from my last life and a healthy outlet from that last life. You know, heading out to go hunt bad guys when you're not on the clock for Uncle Sam is not good business. So the fact that now I can go hunt, eat what I shoot at is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I guess I should say also that, you know, as per usual, we're going to give away some First Light gear for an awesome question. So, you know, definitely shoot us some questions. We don't have to answer them for them to be considered, because we're going to try to answer a bunch tomorrow. And then Rourke has generously offered one of his books as a prize as well. What book do you think you're going to give away?
Why don't we do one of each? We'll do a copy of Damn Few, which is my first book, and Worth Dying For is my second book. So we'll do one of each.
And what did you tackle in Damn Few, and what did you tackle in Worth Dying For?
Damn Few is a little more autobiographical, kind of how I grew up, and really much more not. I want you to hear how I grew up because I feel like I'm important. It was the lessons I learned, the principles I was taught from my father, from my mom, my brother, mentors, coaches, and things like that led me to serve. So it was a little bit of a chronological path to service in the active Navy and the SEAL teams, and then that experience, what I learned in training, and I tried to hit higher ideals. There have been plenty of Special Forces and SEAL books that are very centric on, I killed this many people, I killed this person, we got this, very, very specific missions. There's plenty of missions and gunfighting things in there, but it's much more, this is what I learned, this is what I think it meant, this is why we do what we do, stories about the families and stuff that I think make us who we are. So I really tackled that in Damn Few, a little bit outward looking on some thoughts on future warfare. Worth Dying For, which came out about a year ago, a little over a year ago, is a little more outward looking. I mean, it has some, reflective thoughts on my time on the battlefield and things I learned about killing, about what we do, which were some very interesting chapters to write, and I enjoyed writing that. I also talk about my belief that everyone should serve, not necessarily in the military, but that almost universal service. I think we benefit ourselves hugely as a country if we were actually required to serve. And so again, military service could satisfy that need. I think you work for an NGO, I think you work for a aid organization, 1 year subsistence wage, you don't get to live in the town you grew up in, you got to go somewhere else. So if you're from Chicago, you're going to Bend, Oregon. If you're from Bend, Oregon, you're going to Texas. If you're from Texas, you're going to New York. So you got to move around a different spot and really think of others before yourself. It would be...
And get out of your comfort zone.
Get out of your comfort zone. Think of others before yourself. Really give back to, on some level, those in need or a gap that needs to be filled within the country. I just think we would be so better for it. I mean, I just think it would be great. The transformative experience for me in service, I can't even put a price tag on. So Worth Dying For talks a lot about that. A little bit about leadership, future, direction of the country and that stuff. But definitely very different books.
Now, when did you start? Have you always been writing? Like, were you a journal guy?
Yeah.
Like, how did you go, I'm going to make a book?
Yeah. I've always been much more of a art and literature guy than a math and science guy. I really wrestle with math and struggle with numbers and those things. So literature was a huge kind of bedrock thing. My dad, brother, and I, voracious readers, share books with each other all the time, constantly reading, and do to this day. And a book is what started my military career. My dad had sent me a copy of an autobiography Winston Churchill wrote much later in his life called My Early Life, and that book was the spark. I mean, I read that book, and the idea of military service to kind of earn your spot in a community, in a society, in this country, which I feel very strongly about, was just the right place for me to start. So when I got to the tail end of my active duty time, then had run training for most of the SEALs, most basic and advanced training, I kind of got to a spot where I felt like I had something to write about. And so I've had a lot of feedback from young Lions that read the book and want to serve, or amongst others that they've read, and that seems well worth the time grinding out a book. That would serve as a spark like a book did for me. So I'll write more. I don't write them to write them. There's a bunch of military folks, and I'm not knocking somebody that does it, but there's a lot of military folks I think that are out there that are they're just grinding out books and generating a lot. And there's a business component to that as well. It's enough work that I only want to write them if it's something I want to write about. So I don't have the next one dialed in, but it's taking shape.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of wanted to talk to the training component and just kind of how things have changed and what actually, transfers to the field in civilian life, and because I read a very interesting statistic the other day, whereas currently right now, 2017, over 50% of recruits have zero experience with firearms, as in have not handled a firearm, have not fired a firearm.
Yeah.
So that had to have been different than even when you were going through school.
Yeah. I don't know that's interesting. I'd be interested to poll, and I'll do that. I'll try and find some metrics of maybe when I was going through training and what we're seeing with the young lions coming in right now. I'd shot a decent amount, plinking at cans and shooting with my dad and brother. But again, we didn't do a lot of hunting. As a kid, it was mostly fishing. So I was familiar with guns, but I certainly I was not proficient. Safe, I'd been taught to be safe, but by no means was I shooting an eye out of a bird flying with any weapon system on earth. So in some ways, I feel like I had some fundamentals down, and then going through special operations training and SEAL training, we obviously pushed the threshold of what you're going to do with both primary weapon, secondary weapon, multiple weapon systems, that you get extremely proficient with those. And so I'll be honest, there's guys that came from real diverse backgrounds, and some had no experience and some had a lot. Truth be told, a lot of guys that grew up in Michigan or the Midwest and probably big Western states that were hunters, those are guys that are going to gravitate towards being snipers because they've spent a lot of time on glass and spent a lot of time working on field graph and stalking and those things that translate obviously to from hunting to the battlefield. And we got guys from New York City that have never picked up a gun, or snipers too. So you can. I truly believe on an elemental level you can train to anything. We all have our limitations, but you can train yourself to almost anything. So you get somebody that can listen, pay attention, pass the basics of military bearing and discipline and focus. We can teach you. We can teach you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, was there anything specific to your military training that when I guess I want to talk about how all of a sudden you were like, yeah, I want to go hunt, when you didn't really hunt as a child, and what was the catalyst to getting in the field? Because I've talked to a lot of guys who are like, yeah, I never want to see a gun again.
Yeah,
I had too much of that.
I think it's different for everybody. So I definitely don't try and make recommendations for people that there's a lot of guys and gals that have come back from the battlefield and are damaged from it. There's plenty of people that have had combat stress to the point where they want nothing to do, that connects them to that lifestyle. I think I'm right in saying this. A good buddy of mine ran all the psychology, kind of was the psych doc for the entire SEAL community, and he would argue that shooting sports and that type stuff, it is good therapy. It is something that you're familiar with. Shooting is not an aggressive. People that shoot, of course, you listen to people that know nothing about shooting, they would think shooting is an aggressive act. Anyone that shoots at all knows you're not going to shoot accurately if you're aggressive on the gun or driving a weapon system with a lot of intensity. You can be intense in your purpose, but we know that shooting is very, very, very disciplined and controlled, and breathing and sight alignment, sight picture, and all these different points of performance are very specific. And so I think those things are very healthy. I don't feel like I have. I was very lucky with my time on the battlefield. I have no idea how to attribute that to an emotional maturity or luck or some personality, either strength or disorder, that I have little to no combat stress baggage. I just very much believed in what I was doing, and as did most of my teammates, and I feel very much in balance from my time on the battlefield. So I didn't come back fiending for more fighting. I felt like I got enough. I write about worth dying for, that I do think there is a limit to the amount of human violence a person can endure. Some people don't have a choice. Some people live in war-torn countries and will for multi-generations only experience combat. I mean, to be honest, any young person watching this has only known this nation at war. It's pretty staggering to think how many young people only know our country at war, whereas we grew up not knowing that, which is a tremendous shift in our kind of cultural experience. But I got enough. I mean, I feel like I had the right amount to satisfy, curiosity is not the right word, my desire to push that human limit and interaction through military service. And, I couldn't control it, but we went to war and have been there ever since. So I feel good in what I learned and what I want to do on the battlefield. And my time, particularly as an officer, I promoted out of getting to do the fun stuff. So I was starting to look at computer screens more during the day than shooting at bad guys. But the idea of throwing the ruck into the corner and putting the gun away and not having anything to do with it did not feel right. There's so much experience with that, so much time. And I think anybody that watching this that's a hunter will know we like the suffering, we like the tough stuff. So I mean, I like having a pack and humping up something steep that hurts, and the pleasure of getting there, and thinking the weather's going to be good and it turning on you, and all those things that take place when you're out, in God's country, really appeal to me. And so hunting made perfect sense. And when I met Ranella, it was just an easy yes. I hadn't really set on a predictive path of saying, hey, I'm gonna become a big game hunter, but it was definitely, I'd enjoyed fishing and being outdoors so much that I could tell if I didn't do something, if I didn't replace. Adrenaline rushes aren't the thing that I really seek, although that certainly takes place on hunts. I've seen you on camera having a big grizz running at you and relatively confident. Adrenaline was at play in that moment. And so it's not a junkie type thing, sinking it out. I just like being in dangerous environments and being in spots where you feel like you're on the food chain and things can go south. There's something that appeals to me, and I don't think I need to explain that to a lot of people that spend time afield. It's just one of those things I enjoy. So hunting's, in my mind, there is no greater transition from a combat unit, no doubt in my mind, a special operations unit, than getting into big game hunting, no doubt.
It's so we saw this giant resurgence into the field after World War II.
Yep. Right,
veterans, lots and lots of veterans, lots of folks packing their rifles home too. Yep. It was an inexpensive way to get out and recreate, and it was also back in the day where way more people, a weapon in the home was standard.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
Hardware store guns.
Yep.
Right? And I feel like that generation kind of naturally could go into the field.
Yeah.
And now, like I said, there's recent statistics, like the lowest, that age of like 17 to 25 has like the lowest firearms ownership numbers in history. You have 55% of new military recruits have hardly even seen a weapon. Right? So I kind of wonder how, this generation will they transfer into the field? Will they see that as,
I don't know,
maybe a cathartic way to?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I hope they do it, because I just personally believe it is a very healthy outlet for that last life, for that experience, and what we kind of train to. And I think it's healthy to do things you're good at. I think it's also healthy to pursue things you're not good at, right? We're not all complete people, so there's things you excel at and there's things you have shortcomings in, and you should probably be working on both. The fact of the matter is you have a lot of fun when you get good at something, right? Like when you get a skill set that then you execute and then it leads towards a win, whatever that looks like, whatever it is. I frankly think those are the things that kind of feed people's souls. Like when I look at my kiddos, I want them to find that thing that they're good at. I also am going to push them to do a bunch of things they're not good at and get uncomfortable. But when you find that thing you have passion for, like my bride is an amazing singer, and people say that about their ladies and husbands and friends, like almost made it to Hollywood and American Idol and can sing. And so now mama too, and kind of wondering what do I want my life to be kind of moving forward. She's She's singing at our church, which is a big church. I mean, a big main stage. You might as well be singing in a concert.
Mm-hmm.
She just, got auditioned for a play. She's going to be in a musical and is doing that. And it's something she excels at. So I think when you get into something that you excel at, it feels good. It's a familiar, good place to be. So I think it's a healthy thing. So I would say that generation translating or transitioning from active duty to civilian life, I hope they bring guns in a healthy way into that world. I hope they teach people about it. I think we've talked about this. I mean, people that shoot, I think everybody, you got to have a certain level of capacity to teach it, but should be teaching someone to shoot or expose that to people, because I can't even count the number of times I've taken friends of my bride and friends out shooting that haven't shot before, and what a powerful experience it is. I mean, it really is. Even if you don't get into shooting sports, into shooting, I think everyone, this kind of falls a little bit in that universal service, I think everyone should fire a gun. I think it should be mandatory. I mean, it should be like a school, elective or requirement in physical education that we go out and shoot. Because if you do, you'll have such an appreciation for how powerful, I mean, even if you shoot a 22, how powerful a thing that is, how dangerous it is, how real it is. I mean, Hollywood is so utterly desensitized us to what shooting is and what it means, and kids play video games. And we were starting to see, when I ran training, we were starting to see kids coming into the SEAL teams from the kind of Call of Duty video game era.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like we had to say something, be like, you don't regenerate on the battlefield, right? Like, it's one life for you and me, so let's do it right. So I'm for people getting that experience, whether they're gonna then get into shooting in any consistency, or just knowing what it's like. It's a powerful thing.
But we used to see something very similar when we'd do swift water rescue training, right?
Yeah.
The power of water.
Oh yeah.
And
sure.
How many people just think it is a vacation thing? It's a safe vehicle for any type of recreation, and then you get put in some scary spots. You work as a team. You put people in scary spots. They feel the power of the water, and I mean, I'll tell you, for my very first class, and I was probably naturally a little more conservative than a lot of folks. That was, I mean, you approach water in a much different way once you get exposed to it.
No,
so.
for sure.
So now, are there things from your training where you're like, when you made the transition to hunting, you're like, oh yeah, got this?
I'd love to give you just one or two items. It's so complete in the transition, it's kind of crazy. Again, I mean, think about if I'm going into a field on a mission, on a SEAL tactical assault team to go attack a target, let's say it's in the mountains of Afghanistan. We're going to take into consideration the duration, the weather, the enemy's condition and what it's doing, which would be very analogous to what's an animal's behavior and what's its pattern of life. Where does it eat? Where does it sleep? Where does it transition? Where does it move?
Mm-hmm.
What type of gear do I need to take to be in the field as long as we're planning to be? That from food, water, to bullets, to navigation equipment, communication equipment, and then you go out there with the best laid plan, and it all goes to hell.
Yes.
So I mean, it's if that doesn't sound familiar to a hunter, then I mean, it's the same. It's the same. So I mean, the when Steve and I left on that first hunt, I think I've said this before, but when we finally got there, we're at this Buck Bowden's house up in the Alaska range that he homesteaded like in the 70s. And when I finally we're there for about a day, we took off the next morning. When I put a heavy pack on my shoulder, a rifle up on my pack, and started humping off into mountainous terrain, where of course there's mega critters up there that could scratch you up and ruin your day, I was like, if this doesn't feel familiar, I don't know what does, So
it was wild.
It was unbelievable transition. So, as I describe that, it makes to me such sense of why again it's one for one. At this point, I feel like the shortcomings I have in hunting are learning the animals and their behaviors. When it's with a rifle, it's nowhere near as hard. I've started to get into bow hunting with a rifle based on the distances I feel comfortable at. It is very much similar to kind of the battlefield, where I know how to keep myself relaxed, where the vitals are, how I'm going to put that ammo down and do it the right way, not take shots I shouldn't be taking, and setting up for a good shot with a rifle. Bow's a little different. I feel like I've got a little bit bigger gap to bridge there on when do I draw, what does this animal need to do that I don't freak it out, scare it, make a mistake. But even that is still field craft of having, noise and light and sound discipline and knowing where the wind is. I mean, this is all stuff we take from the battlefield. So the gaps I need to close are small, but I mean, it'll be a lifetime pursuit to get good at it. But I feel pretty solid on at least being in the field.
Yeah. So, I've guided a few guys. One of my first ever elk clients was a retired Marine, and a couple other folks along the way. And I felt like their military training wanted them to go from point A to point B and check it off the list.
Yep.
And that's the only negative thing I had to say, because I'm like,
and it's interesting you say it.
Where are we going today?
If you talk about a kind of a Marine, a grunt fighter, and I say that with utter respect, and a special operations soldier, which Marines have as well. They've got their reconnaissance now. It's called Marine Special Operations Command. Your more conventional unit is much more by the numbers discipline. Where are we going? What are we doing? When do we get there? And then what do we do when we get there? And that's the way a lot of them run operations now. Completely dynamic and capable in a fight, but in the overarching structure, that's the way they set things up, because they have big groups of folks. I mean, I never ran a team of 500 people on the battlefield, and there's units that do that. 300 warriors running around and coordinate. We were involved in that plenty, but I have a small group of 12, sometimes 4 to 20 guys that are very artistic and fluid in the way they see things. So maybe special operations prepared me in a different way for needing to make tremendous calls on the fly to adjust the plan. Even on that first hunt with Ranella, that's I mean, you know Steve well. He is a going fool.
Yes,
he does not like to sit around, which appeals to me. I have no problem with that. And we're running up and down every mountain we can find. And I mean, there was no stone unturned in that section of ground we were hunting. And about 4 days into that, I think we had 6 days total, or maybe 3.5, 4 days into it, it was pretty obvious, because the alders had all leafed out, and we didn't think that was going to be the case based on the time we were there. We just did not have the sight lines to find critters moving that much. So we had a good, knob that we were kind of camped at, and I could tell it killed him. But he just said, I let him say it, because it was his hunt in my mind as much as it was mine. He said, I think the best thing to do is sit here. And I said, I agree. I think we've seen critters all throughout here, and we're seeing bears every day. It was just not many in a position where we could really go after them. And so sometimes you got to make that call, right? We're not going to have, it's his nature to go, and we had to stop, and it ended up fruitful, because it did come to us in that scenario.
So how do you pick? Who gets to choose?
When it comes to, what are we talking about?
Camping?
Yeah.
Walk in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean,
is it this way to camp? Is it that way to camp?
Yeah, I mean, it's, for me, I've got a lot of background on the way I navigate and move from my time doing it. So I like having that control. I think when I went with Steve, it was, and I actually enjoyed it. And I told him, I gave him a hard time midway through, because we were getting towards the end and it didn't look like we might get something. I said, it's funny. I for the last 15 some odd years, when there's been a gun and a backpack and I've been out in rugged terrain, it's been my decision on almost everything. And our guys have tremendous ability to make their own decisions.
That had to have thrown you for a loop.
Falls on me.
Though, right?
For me, it was. I think the nice thing is being in the military is another great transition to regular life. You have a tremendous respect, even as a leader, of what it means to be a good follower as well. I've yet to meet the leader that was just a leader, right? I mean, if you haven't taken that time to follow and listen to others and those that have a better perspective and understanding of what you're doing, your head's too big. So, I mean, look, if I'm going to go tell Steve Ranella on my first hunt how to hunt, not good business. So for me, it was actually easy. It wasn't too hard to give that away to him, just because I had a tremendous amount of faith in what he knew and how to go do it. And to be honest, I was kind of tickled that I didn't have to make a decision, And it wasn't, hunting with him. It's not like I was being guided and pampered up to some cozy spot to take a shot. But I was happy to have him calling the shots, and I love to learn. I just love to learn. When I get time with you, with folks that have been doing this way longer than me, I just like peppering questions, So, and I recommend that to anybody listening, particularly young folks listening to this. Just find mentors and just ask them questions constantly.
Well, so you got a like relatively new hunting buddy in Colorado,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And this was a major question when we talk about like the mentorship role and how
Yep.
important the mentorship role is. Like, I mean, how did you guys decide? Like, yep, you and I, we're gonna go on a hunt together.
Yeah, he's out of the peer group of friends where I moved to, in that area, I had kind of an older peer group that are hunters and particularly big time fishermen, fly fishermen. But a couple of them are hunters, and so those guys have been there a long time. They just have kind of set in their ways type hunts. They're that classic crew that kind of goes to the same ground, hunts it the same way, and they've been doing it for a long time, which I have no problem with. I want to blaze my own spot and find those canyons and I like being a difference. I mean, I look out here and I want to go scrambling up this drainage with you, because it's new ground and I like seeing that new ground. So I could tell pretty quickly I needed a younger, peer to be that person, and just through my bride, she met, just this unbelievable group of gals in our town, and I've just been lucky that all the guys amidst that group are just great guys. One in particular is a big hunter. He's been hunting his whole life. Grew up in Pennsylvania. He's been deer hunting, turkey hunting his whole life, and now living out west, chasing elk and bear and everything else out there. And so he certainly has more experience than I do. He's fit. We share a lot of kind of commonalities in the good stuff. We both see hunting the same way. We want to go to hard places. We want to pack in and go get after it. I mean, there's very few hunts I'd say no to. I mean, if somebody invited me, I'll prioritize them on my schedule. But I probably don't want to go to a hunt where, I've seen some of these where it looks like, huge elk have been grown in factories and there's fences in the background and they're on a salt lick and I go shoot one to put them on. I probably won't do that hunt. Short of that, I think all hunting is learning and an opportunity for me to get out there. With him in particular, it's we're going bow hunting and rifle hunting and rugged terrain and getting after it. So I think the division of work kind of happens naturally. I mean, the nice thing is, again, I'm certainly not a rookie in we're going to this location. Let's do a map study. Let's look at the terrain. Let's figure out what type of food, water, how we're going to set up camp and move on. So the bulk of the work we both share like any other hunting partnership would, and I think he has a lot of trust kind of in my tactical sense and how that matches hunting as well. I mean, again, when we went up on our last hunt, it was very, I thought, balanced conversation on, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what you're seeing, what do you think the best way to attack this is? And we kind of met in the middle on how to do that and flipped a coin on who was going to set up where and then kind of get after it. I think we'll have a lot of years of learning together, but again, love his company and like the way he thinks about hunting, so we'll be off to the races.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. But, there's a major intimidation factor, a lot of machismo in the hunting world. And, we get this question all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, but how do you figure out who you're going to go hunt with?
Yeah.
Like, or how do you ask to go hunting?
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit with Steve and Giannis. Like there's some consequences to going hunting,
sure.
right?
For sure.
And it's relationship wise, too, because it's like, all right, this.
No, and that's why I think he in particular is going to be a good partner. Is all the things that I enjoy and that I want out of a hunt, he wants the same. We like that rugged terrain, we like that pursuit, we want to go get them, in the real grounds. Whereas a couple of that older crew, they go to a ranch that's it's not controlled, it's not fenced, but they know where they're at. They don't have to go too far from camp. They're going to be able to drink every night and be warm and be in a bed. And that again, I have absolutely no problem with it. And I've done a couple hunts that have been close to that. But one of the guys in that crew, he's pretty excitable. He's a great fly fisherman, but I can't imagine him ever harvesting elk because I think he'd get so excited seeing it coming through the woods. He'd lob an arrow too fast or jump up or literally start like hooting and hollering because he wouldn't go. So I will not go bow hunting with him. I only have a finite number of days, so I'm not gonna give that away to him. And I think I've always been, I think, real cautious with the people I'm going to spend time with. I have a lot of people I like. I really am a social person when it comes to my job and so on. I'm pretty introverted when it comes to my personal life. So those special things like hunting and those things I enjoy the most, it's just going to be a small circle of folks that I'm going to spend that time with. Again, I feel like I cheated. I get to call guys at First Lite and buddies and Ranella and these folks. So I mean, I feel like I snuck myself into a better peer group than I would have otherwise. But the fact that I found, even one good buddy there that's into it, and we've got a couple others in that group that don't have a lot of experience, but are maybe the right personalities. So we're kind of figuring out, all right, how do we bring them into the fold and get the crew right. The nice thing is in a spot like we are, two guys is kind of all we need, to get up in that country and go bow hunt. I mean, I think we'd spoil it if we brought a lot more.
Yeah. Start showing a little success, and you're going to be beating your buddies away.
Exactly.
Yeah. So on the kit side of things, like, aside from the weapon of choice, is there like a crucial couple of pieces of kit that you just absolutely would not go out the door without in your kind of operational life?
Yeah. I mean, I would. So the one thing, whenever I have a gift to give, particularly to a young man, and I'm not taking away from young gals because I've got girls, so they'll get this. Actually, they already have. I will be giving them some this weekend. The number one thing I was ever issued, probably in my entire career in the SEAL teams, was a really good headlamp. Like, hands down, that's like my favorite piece of gear. So like, if anybody's graduating from high school or whatever, I give them a headlamp because I just feel like that thing is just, whether you live in New York City or you live in Bozeman, you're gonna be able to put a headlamp to work, right?
Yeah.
So that's like, I'll have 3 of those whenever I mean, they're in every car I own. They're everywhere.
I have one in my carry-on bag
for sure,
every single time.
For sure. Yeah. So that's an absolute hands down. I'll never be without that.
And then anything on like the hunting side of gear, kit stuff, where kind of surprised you? You're like, oh, well, I got it. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think,
or not even. Yeah.
No, I think the packs have become real interesting to me because, my last life we didn't take what we shot out. Obviously,
yeah,
we left it there.
A little different.
There was no reason to take anything out, so it is a very real point of performance that you're going to carry in, and then you're going to be hopefully carrying something out, and that's just a different pack.
Well, it's the only thing I can think of, right? Like, other than like if you were an old gold panner or something, right? The absolute best case scenario is you are hauling out way more than you packed in, right?
So it's unique. So that's a very different piece of gear that I'm kind of working through right now. Glass is actually very similar to my last life as far as, we use binos and spotting scopes and all that stuff to find bad guys. That was primarily the job of my guys. I mean, as an officer, I'd have binos, so I'd glass hillsides with my guys, but really my snipers are on that heavy glass doing that work. So the premium on that is something that I feel like I figured out pretty early that I could probably go cheaper on some pieces of gear. I won't go cheap or be under sourced when it comes to good glass, and every good hunter I've talked to is like, oh, hands down, make sure you've got good glass in there so you can find those critters and get after them. So that's been interesting to kind of get in that world and say, okay, this is a real vital piece that I'm gonna do right. And there's other things I think you can sacrifice on.
Just talking with guys, like I said, we'll get calls from, theaters of operation all over the place, and a lot of times guys just want to hear a good hunting story, right?
Yeah.
They're more interested in that than about the clothes. But interacting with a bunch of these guys, they at least in the special operations field, you get access, or you can at least try a variety of different things. It's not general issue stuff.
Yep.
And to me, I mean, that would be a major difference, right? Because I pretty much always have the same pair of boots, same backpack.
No, we get to try a lot of stuff, and we get some next generation stuff. I think everyone thinks the military is absolutely on the cutting edge of everything, which is 100% not the case. We're usually behind a lot of civilian stuff. I mean, I remember when I got my first wetsuits at my first SEAL team. I mean, I couldn't believe it because I surf, so I'd spent time in the water, and I know what O'Neill was making down at like the 24-seat surf shop, and now like the premier special operations maritime warriors give me these wetsuits that are like leaky, don't move particularly well. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I went and got a surfing wetsuit, and everybody gave me a hard time, when we're getting ready to walk out for the first training mission. Then all of a sudden they see how mobile my arms are, and I start moving around. They're like, I'm getting one of those.
Uh-huh.
So military is actually off and behind. Now the things that we get ahead on are, there's some tech that we do. I mean, our generation of night vision is about as far out there as you can get. The thermals we can run are out of this world. The stuff we can have flying above us, which is not what we do in the hunting space, but we have technology that we leverage to a high level. So it's funny going to SHOT Show and look at thermals and be like, is that what you got? Because I mean, we get some good stuff. So there's a flip side to it where I go backward in some sense. But the funny thing is, I'm not getting the pack, the boots, the gear. You get the top of the line quiver at first light. You're going to be a lot more comfortable in the woods than I was as certainly a new guy 5, even 10 years ago in the SEAL teams. And we're able to open purchase stuff too.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're a regular 4th Infantry Division soldier and you get issued the basic military kit, it's good and it's gotten better and gets better all the time. It is nowhere near up to the good stuff I see on the table right over there. That's for sure.
That is wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
You know what? I go back to this one guy I was talking about. He, Solomon Trail Runners, super popular for what they were doing, but it was
We
mostly
ran those all the time.
It was a lot of. He was in a lot of urban environments. He's like, well, they're soft and quiet, and I'm not carrying that much stuff when I'm doing that stuff. But so I mean, does having the big variety change your mindset versus you're like, I got one pair of hiking boots, one backpack, one.
Yeah, there's probably 2 worlds there that I probably miss one in some ways, and then I really appreciate what I have in some ways. When I finished SEAL training, I got to my first team. They actually sent me to Army Ranger School. So I hadn't fully become a SEAL. I'd made it through BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL training. You go to your team. At that time in our history, you went to your team. You had to be there for 6-8 months on probation, and then they decided, hey, is this guy Cal somebody we want or not? Is he learning the way we want to make it or not? Pass all the tests. Now you get your Trident. You're now a SEAL. So before I even had my Trident, they sent me to Army Ranger School because they sent all the junior officers there at this team to Army Ranger School.
Now, at the time, did you take that as a good sign or a bad sign?
I didn't even know enough of the military to know it was good.
Okay.
It's funny, in hindsight, I'd heard that they actually sent some of their problem children to the team down there almost like a punishment. But for the junior officers in particular, our commanding officer had been a JSOC, Joint Special Operations guy, so tremendous time with Army and other units. So he just said, look, I want you to go learn Army. I want you to go meet Army guys, see how they do things, go to one of their premier schools. So I went to Army Ranger School. The thing I loved about Army Ranger School is that they issue you everything. It is old and, simple Alice pack, old school Tundra boots, your regular black military, combat boots from, they're walking around with in Vietnam. And to be honest, the simplicity of that was awesome. There was no extra kit. There's no cool guy gear. There's no extra warmies. And I'm a polar bear anyway, so even though I was a winter class, I was like, I'm going to be good. But I love the simplicity of that. When you show up at your first SEAL team, and even when I came back from Ranger School, we've got Mystery Ranch and Kelty bags and all kind of whiz-bang gear that's the top of the top. And then you go and throw it all in your backpack and realize you've just created the nightmare ruck from hell. If you just had an Alice pack, you wouldn't be able to fit all that stuff, and you'd be a lot better off. And everyone that hunts knows what I'm talking about. You buy the 7,000 cubic inch one, you're going to fill it just the same as you will the 3,500.
Yes,
so anyway, I like in my new life the level of kit and the level of gear you can throw, and it has just become game changing in weight, in its performance, and its ability to do good things. I mean, you just think about Sir Edmund Hillary and those guys running up in wool and cotton.
Different people.
Like I mean, different
don't you
people.
think?
Man. Oh,
I
no
just
doubt.
can't.
No
I don't understand.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So I take every advantage of the other stuff. I also do like to keep things really simple. There's and we all know them, the guys that buy every new piece of Gucci gear they can get and bring it out there, and I go with the most tried and true system I can come up with, and I'm learning that as I go, but it's very similar to my last life.
All right. We should try to get around to some questions.
Yeah.
So if you have some questions for Rourke or myself involving anything or nothing that we've talked about, start sending them out. Excellent questions get rewarded.
Yeah, that's right.
So just while we wait for some questions to come in, I have just like a personal experience. Kent and I both built 6.5 Grundles, and it was during one of our black gun scares, and so we both got lowers, and decided to build Grundles on them, and then I took one on a hunt in Texas, and I felt so uncomfortable with that gun that because I've never, other than a 22 Ruger long rifle, never hunted with a semi-auto. My entire upbringing, my entire hunting mentorship has always been this one shot.
That's right.
One shot. One shot.
I love this.
And I could not. I felt so just incredibly out of place. I'm like, I had 10-round mag. And for me, like mentally, I had to put the thing away. Because I couldn't. I was like, what am I doing with this? Is this going to make me a worse shot? Or make bad decisions?
Right. Well, I mean, I think the potential exists there. The capacity exists there. I had the exact opposite experience. So the very first time I went into a place where I thought I was lower on the food chain than I should be, that Alaska hunt, I'm shooting a bolt action 300 Win Mag, which Steve, basically set me up with, and a beautiful gun maker out in Colorado made it for me, and gorgeous gun. Vortex puts optics on. I mean, I'm good to go. I've got beautiful glass. I'm ready to go. I fortunately got a very good close shot. We got this bear in close, and I hit that thing right in the chest. I think it was done before it hit the ground. That said, we're walking around Grizz country, and Giannis has got a shotgun, and Steve, he'll start blasting a rabbit call out there, and you could have the wrong bear in there in a heartbeat, which I was kind of like Steve, excited to see, but some of the rest of the crew was like, here we go, and it was very uncomfortable to me to have this gun where I'm like, what am I going to do if I need more shots? Because in my last life, I got a 30-round magazine, multiple 7 30-round magazines, and now we don't shoot and say, oh, one shot, perfect kill. I mean, snipers will do that at times because that's the only opportunity. But in our line of work, we're driving a target into the ground until it's not shooting at us anymore. So multiple shots I'm very comfortable with, and follow-up shots, and how to manage follow-up shots. So I remember when I went on my first hunt post Steve, it was with my buddy John Burns, who makes beautiful AR platform guns up in Cody, Wyoming. Wyoming Arms makes gorgeous, tack driving rifles. And I remember, because here I am, a new hunter, and we've got a cow elk, good distance, 300 yards, which on that rifle I felt absolutely rock solid on. And sure enough, I send a shot, and I didn't get as good a hit as I wanted. And I hesitated for a second, and I don't know why. I would have thought I would have reverted to my military, like, let's just start sending more rounds down. But I kind of hesitated, almost looking at him like, and he's like, no, hit it again, and boom, I get on it. We're running a suppressed rifle, so I was able to take that shot. And then it was just like, yes, this is a gun I'm used to. So I actually am running tactical rifles as kind of my primary rifle now. If I'm hunting elk, or if I'm hunting antelope, I got to hunt that antelope one-shot competition up in Wyoming with Governor Meade, who invited me to go up there last year and be on his team. And I think I was the only guy there with a 6.5 Creedmoor, but I had a military rifle, and I took such a comfortable shot. Now there you can only take one shot. But if I had to take another shot, I would be right on it. And I had a cow this year up in Wyoming. That was at a distance that I was very comfortable with, and I took that shot, heard it make a good impact. Guys, when I said it was good, she turned and stood up, started to walk, and I was like, what am I doing? My job is to kill this animal. Boom. And I put 2 more rounds down, maybe damaged a little bit of meat, but I felt great that I had not only the capacity, but the platform to do that effectively. So for me, and I know it's a big shift, I'm sure this is a huge conversation point amongst traditionalists and maybe modern shooters.
I have not really heard it.
Interesting. So
amongst
for me,
gun people, but I tell you, man, I I physically couldn't carry the thing because it was such a mental
And
block
for me, that's just the gun I've been carrying the whole time. So on me, I know how to safe hang that thing. I know how I like routing my sling. I know exactly where the magazines are. I know the function checks. I know exactly how to do malfunction drills. I mean, if that 300 Win Mag went down on me up there, I would have handed it to Steve. I mean, probably enough time on a gun, I would have tried to figure something out and be like, oh, there's a stovepipe or something. Like, but I mean, on an AR, forget it. I can do that in my sleep underwater.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a comfortable platform.
I know exactly how long it takes to reload my 300 Win Mag, which is my all-time favorite rifle. Right? Yeah. I know it. Yeah. And it makes me think ahead. Yeah. And it makes me slow down. Yeah. And I feel like all that's been great. And then all of a sudden, I could make 10 bullets go in the same amount of time almost, and I was like, and so what am I doing with it?
And so it's the same thing for me. All that time you've built on that gun, I've built on a 30-round magazine and a gun that's built the way I'm hunting with now. So that platform for me, no doubt I'll take a bolt gun in the big country and use it again. It would not be my first choice.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
Let's see. We'll hammer out some questions. What is the number one thing you learned from your service life that you could tell a civilian to help their hunting life?
One I would say is I feel like you always have more time than you think you have. You know, people rush shots, rush decisions, panic, allow themselves to get ahead of themselves when they probably just need to take a beat and a pause. And you read any survival magazine or a testimonial of somebody that survived in the woods. Most of them took a beat to kind of compose themselves, take a deep breath, and then start making good decisions. And so things happen fast and unfold fast, and you got to be prepared for that as well. Usually you have more time than you think you do. And so I think you need to figure out that real good balance and fine line between the right amount of time and waiting too long or rushing. But in general, I think, and from talking to hunters, a lot of guys that miss talk about rushing, rushing the shot or rushing the trigger squeeze or the release, and that's one thing I'd certainly take from my last life. The number one thing I learned in SEAL training, Hounds Down, this is a long story, we'll do it the next time I'm in town, but it is one of the favorite things I kind of exported from my time as SEALs, and it's this singular line that a Master Chief taught me, which is calm is contagious. Calm is contagious. And so particularly in a group, if you keep it together, the people around you will keep it together. And if you keep it together, you'll keep it together. So, and if you lose it, other people start losing. It just is one of those toxic,
because that's contagious too, right?
Yeah. So, calm is contagious is one I would share with everybody as well. That just I prefer calm over panic most of the time.
How or did military marksmanship translate to hunting marksmanship?
Well, as we were just talking, I mean, the nice thing about me running a tactical rifle in the hunting scenario is I'm used to taking a shot and then getting right back on the trigger, staying in the glass, and being prepared for a follow-up shot. So in the hunting space, that preps me for not that immediate, you hit them somewhere in the bread basket and they went just down and piled up, which I haven't been hunting long enough to say what's the number of animals that have taken off on a run or dropped in their spot, but it's been at least even. Mm-hmm. And actually I think I've had them move more than they have dropped solid. That antelope I never took another step. Every other critter I've hit has decided to keep going. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that practice on a gun, being prepared for a follow-up shot, staying on the glass, has been hugely helpful. What I would say on any of that stuff is just practice like you're going to fight. Train to the scenario. I do think there's a lot of hunters, my sense is, none of you guys, but my sense is there's a lot of hunters that, go take a 3-round group, their rifle's ready to go, they haven't put in any fitness work, they haven't done any real scenario-driven shooting, they haven't done what is going to be the case, which is your heart's going to be going, whether it was you ran up a draw to get to a clearing to take a shot, or your adrenaline's going and you're shaking and feeling it. You should replicate that in the training grounds to prepare for when that's going to happen.
Yeah,
because you will never you will never rise to the occasion. That is such a farcical thing that people say, oh, you rise to the occasion. We in the military say you degrade your training. You degrade your training. So if you've trained, trained to do this, change, throw a magazine, whatever it is to get that job, that's what you're going to do when it gets tough.
And anymore, the bench rest, I think it can be such a hindrance to particularly new shooters, because like that is so safe. It's locked in there.
Yep.
But all you do with a bench rest is you eliminate the human factor.
Right.
And that's the only time that's ever going to happen.
That's right.
So yes, yes, you have to, train, whatever.
Train like
practice
you fight.
how you play.
Yeah, practice how you play, train like you fight. Yep.
Do you have a dream hunt at this point?
I would say I don't want to because I'm so new. I just need to log hours and get after it. But yeah, I mean, I think once you get into this game, right, you just start immersing yourself in it. So you're watching YouTube videos and all the hunters that are going around the world hunting. I don't have a tremendous number of kind of exotics. That's what I love about where we live is most of everything I want to do. Exotic Cape buffalo, I would love to go after a Cape buffalo. Of course, that's like a hands down bucket list. I need to do that before.
There's something about that.
There's something about that one that I need to do. Besides that, there's no world trophies that I'm feeling particularly crazy about. No doubt in my mind going after goats and sheep is a no doubt bucket list. Have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I really would love to do, and I think I don't know if I've seen you do this, but I know I've seen Ranella go after a moose in real remote rugged country and find that big critter, hopefully knock it down, and then go through the whole drill of where that work begins and getting it out of there. No doubt bucket list critter. I live in elk country, so taking a no kidding big dog elk is a full-time pursuit right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not just because I want it up on my wall, but just those are the rare buggers to go after, man. There's
Absolutely.
a reason they get big, so I want to get one of those.
Yes.
Big mule deer. I think most of us share a lot of those. I'd say living here, getting some of those high country animals.
Yeah.
For sure. Big ram and one of those white ghosts is a must do.
I mean, I've never got to do it for myself, but Ford in the office drew a goat tag.
Yep.
Left, right out of the office to go hunt.
Yeah.
Coolest thing ever. But yeah, there's nothing else up there.
Yeah.
Like it is, you get all of a sudden you transition up and it's just goat country, and there's something pretty fantastic.
I wish I'd been at this point in my hunting career when I was in Afghanistan, because there's big critters up there that I wish I'd had like an off afternoon to go find. I'm sure they're around the perimeter of some spot. There's got to be one hunter that knew what he was doing out there and probably knocked down everything, hid it, probably buried it in a bag somewhere, and has like a wall of Hindu Kush animals that I hope I meet that. If you're listening right now, invite me, because I want to see that trophy room.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Probably a good one to end with. Your bear was the trichinosis bear.
Yep.
And if you're not familiar, our buddy Steve Ranella has a very good story about trichinosis, and trichinosis is a pretty awful thing. Well, this fellow is the man who shot the bear that everyone got trichinosis from. Most interesting part is he did not get trichinosis. And why did you not get trichinosis?
I am utterly convinced that based on Uncle Sam's dime giving me malaria, having all kinds of different, shots from yellow fever to, anthrax and all these different things in my system to survive nastiness around the world. I honestly feel like that, because we all ate the same bear. Everybody ate the same meat off the same stick that we assume is the one that got everybody. I just feel like my stomach saw trichinosis, was like, give me a break.
And you don't think that the meat, the chunks that you grabbed were just a little more cooked than
Probably
others?
Probably so. I mean, I say that because I like giving Steve a hard time. But I mean, I will tell you this: we all bit into it. I don't remember if it made the final cut, but I feel like when we all bit it, in my mind, Steve had already given like a speech about and I was like, that's a little tender. You know, like when I ate it, I was kind of like, okay. I mean, look, he's the pro, so no doubt in my mind he's cooked enough and he's eating it, so I don't think he wants it. But I know when I bit it, I was like, it feels a little pink. You know, it tastes a little pink. But no, I mean, I'm sure for some bizarre reason I didn't get it compared to anybody else. But I like giving him a hard time saying that I just have superior genetics.
Yeah, I like it.
Yep.
We will never know.
No. Hopefully, I'll never test it again.
One last question was, what conservation groups are you a part of, or would you recommend? Are you a member of any conservation groups?
Only through knowing you guys, you know, I've gotten to know a little bit the Teddy Roosevelt, you know, crew, and then you know, not a lot besides though, other than being a hunter and feel like contributing into wild places with tags and being involved in the outdoor sports. But I'll get more involved as I weigh into it, particularly, you know, if the platform exists for me to help that and to protect what we enjoy here. I'm all in. So I'll pick your guys' brains more and be more part of it as I can be.
Better to be involved, even if you're not active, right?
Sure,
yeah.
Sure.
Goes back to that education part of things. You know, and really just there's a lot of groups out there that they all contribute. They do great stuff. Best thing you can do is track down websites, sign up for their newsletter. None of them cost you anything. Just get the newsletter, see if you like what they're saying. Certainly take note if you don't like what they're saying. Education is the biggest part of this, and then you can start chiming in and write in to your elected officials and let them know what you think and tell them that you are, you know, who they are working for, and they need to listen to you. I like TRCP and Backcountry Hunters and Anglers are great groups.
I've followed them as well because I've met Land and some of those guys on an event. So I love those guys.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a bunch. Mule Deer Foundation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. There's great groups. Everybody's contributing, and you're gonna click with the group or with some folks, and you know, go to a meeting, and you may find a good hunting partner as well. So. I guess one last thing I should mention is we are going to be doing the big First Lite Elite giveaway on Wednesday, I believe. So check back in for that one. Rourke, man, thank you very much.
No, my pleasure. Thanks
Great
for
having you in town.
Of course.
Yes. Anything you would like to say?
No, I appreciate the time. I love this life. I love this, you know, this new, you know, part of my life in the hunting space, and I plan to do a lot more. So, you know, look for me on more goof off sessions with you, Ranella, and the rest of the crew.
I like it. Well, thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you later.